had it moved.
Okay. Good evening. Today is Thursday, June 26th. It is 7:03 p.m. I'm calling to order the meeting of the Mendon Conservation Commission. We'll take a roll call of the participants. My name is Paul Hummel, I'm the chair.
Bob Sweet.
Susan Cahalan, co-chair. Leah Whiting.
Mike Mandalay.
And that may be Peter coming in. Nope,
It's later.
not yet. Okay. First item of business is good and welfare for the public. This is an opportunity for members of the public to raise issues or matters that they wish to be brought to the attention of the committee. We are not taking any action on things that might bring to our attention, but we might direct our agent to investigate further or put it on the agenda for a future meeting. If you're here for one of the items on the agenda, you can wait until we get to that part of it. So is there anybody either online or in the audience who wishes to speak to an issue that is not currently scheduled for the agenda? Okay, I don't see any hands raised online. We'll go into agenda item number 4, public hearings. First one is notice of intent for 37 Kingsley Lane. Department DEP number has not yet been issued, which is going to be an unfortunate common theme for tonight. Applicant John Carney, description: replaced pre-existing wooden dock with the seasonable removable aluminum dock. Because there is no DEP number, we're not going to be able to close the hearing and make a determination. Since we are looking at the 4th of July weekend coming up and our agent going on vacation, I will be asking people who are having public hearings if they are willing to continue until our what would normally be the second meeting in July. This is because in order to be within the state guidelines for how we process permits, we need to continue for that long. So I'll be asking each applicant if they're willing to let us take a vacation week when we get to that. So do we have John Carney or someone representing him?
Yes, good evening, committee. I'm present. Yeah, so is it on for July 10th? I know we're just waiting for the Mass DEP to get back, so July 10th, did you say it, or?
That's the meeting we want to skip, so the next meeting would be July 24. July 24.
Okay, yeah, no problem, that works.
Do you want to talk about anything now or wait until we actually get DEP comments?
We can wait for the DEP. That works.
Okay, Mike?
Since the meeting's been opened, correct?
Yep.
I'd just like to ask what, on staff comments, confirm where the dock will be stored in the winter?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Where are you gonna have the dock when you take it out in the winter? Is it gonna be stored inside or outside somewhere?
It's gonna be under the existing deck. It would be under there, stored. I can put it inside if that's what you guys prefer.
Is that acceptable to the staff?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yep. Okay, and Peter Coffin is now here. He's our other member of the commission.
And will you have some type of nameplate and information on the dock when it's in the water and for the season, in case it floats away?
Yes, we can. I didn't know that was a requirement, but we can absolutely do that.
Well, I'm just, since the meeting is open, we can get through a few things, so the next time you're in front of us, we can expedite you through.
Sounds
I
good.
believe all we're waiting for is the, see if the DEP has any comments. Is that
Right.
correct, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay, so we can conduct a
Yeah,
meeting.
we can talk about other things if people are interested in that. Yeah, the situation is that DEP has now hired a circuit rider for our department, our area. However, since the new circuit rider used to be employed here in Mendon, as well as in Upton, not Upton, Uxbridge. We would be having another person at DEP assigned to us, and they're busy. So that's why we haven't been able to get the numbers yet.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. The applicant has sent a drawing of what he wants for a dock, and it shows that there's a bunch of piers going into the water. Did he look into any kind of floating dock that doesn't require being mounted right into the ground?
Can I have something to say. Yeah, they're not going into the ground. They're actually 8-inch diameter metal or aluminum plates with the poles going through, so it doesn't really penetrate the ground. And there's no, like, we're not bringing any material or anything like that, and no stone or nothing. It's not like piers. It's just aluminum pole. But yeah.
So they just have pads and they're sitting on the bottom of the
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Is this,
Bob, I know this type of system. I believe they're adjustable so you can level off the deck.
No, that's
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, but they stay in the winter, the legs, the feet, or the feet come out too?
No, they come out, everything comes out.
Everything comes out.
Correct.
is this something you're putting together yourself, or are you buying it from a company?
No, it's a Tommy dock. I already have it, and just waiting for that permit. But yeah, I got everything, and it's all manufactured.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
This is kind of new to us, and I'm glad to see, there's a lot of docks and what is going to be required. And leaves a good question, a nameplate and information in case it floats away.
Okay.
It's a good idea, I'm not sure it's necessary, and or just a number, what number? The order of condition number?
Street address.
Street address.
Yeah, probably his name and street address, so.
if you're gonna put a plate, you might as well put your name and address on it. So
I don't want to see it play, I mean, that seems a lot
Well,
of
you won't be
expensive
looking,
number.
you won't be looking at it. If it was my property and I would put it on there, I would want my name and address on there in case a hurricane blows through and blows it across the lake. Somebody goes, oh, look what I found. Oh, I think I'll return it to Mike. So I don't think it's a bad
I don't
idea.
think there's salvage lakes, but yeah.
Right, I don't think it's a bad idea either, I just don't see the need to go for a defensive plate, can you paint on your name and number like on a boat?
Yeah.
Like a boat. Not a big.
We can come up with some kind of language about clearly identifiable.
Yeah, absolutely.
The real question is, Peter, why do we care where we confirm where the dock will be stored in the winter? Why do we care about that? Why was,
whether it's
I asked
in
the
the
question
water.
because it's here, but why should we care about where he stores it?
I wouldn't want to see it dragged up halfway and sitting on the bank.
Yeah, it could cause damage if it floats off.
We don't want
If
to,
it's on his property.
well, we don't want to impede people's access to walk around between the high and low water.
Or break an ankle or something.
Good question, man.
Because it's a great pond, Mike, it has public access all the way around the main water line.
Right.
So if it's
So if
stored
he's
in
gonna
the
pull
main
it
water
out,
line.
if he's gonna take it out of the water, he's gonna get it up out of the high water line.
Well, we have to,
Right.
we don't want to
Take it out of the
assume,
water.
because you know what happens when you make an assumption.
I think the permit says it's a removable dock out of the water. There's no assumption there. But anyway, again, I think we've gone far enough so that when we do hear comments or no comments from the DEPA, we can.
Okay. Any further questions or comments from the board? Any from members of the audience or online? Okay, I see none, so we will, with your permission, I'll entertain a motion to continue until July 24th.
I move
Thank
to
you.
continue the public hearing, I move to continue the public hearing, 37 Kinsley Lane, to July 26th.
Is it 26 or 24?
Yeah, it should be the 24th.
Oh, it's the wrong date on here. Calendar's wrong. Oh.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We're all present, so we can take a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. All right, moving on to agenda item 5, notice of intent for 112 Uxbridge
Thank you.
Road. Yep, thank you. See you in a month.
Have a nice night. Thank you.
Come on up, Tim. Get a little closer to the mic. Thank you. Applicant James Quirk. And Karen Keegan, I believe, is online.
Yes.
Yep. Before we get started, since this is a continuance, we had another site walk this morning. Bob, do you have any observations that you'd like to share with the commission from what you saw this morning?
The idea of the rock wall is a great idea. It looks like you're a little short on rock. What's your intention? Is to put it at the bottom and then go from the top and dump it down?
We have to start the base.
Right, that's what, with the rock that's there now, are you just gonna, armor the bottom and then start dumping from the top? Or you're gonna bring it back more on the bottom and just keep going up from the bottom?
But I had all of the rock, but I was stopped.
Enough.
So I would have had enough to do the whole thing. But now I'm gonna start it as soon as I can. And
It's probably gonna cost more.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I mean, we still don't even have a DEP number yet either, so that's the clue.
that's what we're waiting for.
Right. So, I mean, that right there is the biggest problem, because I don't think anybody, I'm speaking for myself anyways, I don't think anybody, me personally, don't have a problem with you armoring the wall. I think it's a smart move.
Definitely creating better conservation.
One of the questions I had was, when the wall gets put in, are you gonna put like any kind of fabric down to keep the soil back, or are you just gonna put the rock right on the soil?
More than likely to be fabric.
Did you look into any more on whether or not you're going to have it engineered, or?
The engineers have that all in process.
Okay. And those are the questions I had. I mean, the rock is gonna go on a bank. It doesn't get simpler than that.
You were talking with the engineer on site about the 1-to-1, 1-to-2 slope area. Do you still have concerns about how steep it's going to be?
Well, 1-to-1, the engineer suggested engineering it. 1-to-2, they said it wasn't going to be as prevalent to an engineering need. And that's why I was asking about the riprap, the fabric, so that if you are going to, it would help hold any.
I think that's standard process to fabric.
Okay.
All right, so I'll again ask the same question about continuing, if you're comfortable continuing until the until July 24th, or if you would require that we have a meeting before then to take up the hearing again.
So the only thing that, if I do find some rock, I'd like to be able to put some more rock in there. I'm not in the boundary. So I'd like to be able to put some there. I'd like to be able to put some on the top also if I do
Okay.
achieve getting somewhat reasonable.
Okay, so after we will discuss updating or amending the enforcement order. So
I think the enforcement order we're already able to bring in rock, correct?
You did give this secondary delivery in the location that was highlighted. Did you say on top too or outside?
Well, if I do it on top, I mean, it shouldn't
You're
affect
outside.
this at all.
Yeah.
Completely outside, but there is a little bit more space on the bottom, which is, it's not in the boundary, so I should be able to fill that area too.
okay. All right, so now I'll go to your engineer online. Karen, do you want to say anything further about how we're working?
Nope, I do believe that they start at the toe of the slope, the bottom of the slope, and work their way up from there, placing the rock up. And as far as the filter fabric underneath, I'm not, that's have to be discussed at when he starts the process. But I'm sure that they'll shore it up with something.
Okay, in terms of the enforcement order, with Isabella going on vacation, I want to make sure that I'm not going to have to spring into action and come up with something while you're away. So Are you going to be able to work with the applicant to make sure that things are, do we need to modify the enforcement order now, or do they have the ability to deliver rock?
We already approved this, another delivery in writing. So if you want, you can lift the enforcement order, but I wouldn't amend the enforcement order again. It's not
Okay.
necessary. You're agreeing to it in a public meeting.
Okay, so then it sounds like if you want to have another delivery, I would be able to write the letter approving it then. Does that make sense?
So we're not gonna go into the boundary, we're gonna go into the area that was already approved.
Right.
So why would we have to
It would be,
change that?
just like you got a
Just
written
asking
letter.
now.
Hmm?
You can just give approval now and it'll be in the minutes.
Okay, fine, if that'll work out, I'll rely on you to tell me how to make this work the most smoothly.
Are they still trying to get rid of rock up there?
What's that?
Are they still trying to get rid of rock up there?
The property is sold, they have to find something somewhere else.
So that whole thing's been developed and done, huh? You were getting that from Uxbridge, weren't you? That's what I thought. You were finished and gave it to the town?
No, to my knowledge, they sold the property. That's why I wasn't able to get any more rock.
Okay, any more questions from the commission on this before we continue?
As long as it's not uranium, I'm fine.
It's not
I'm doing a little lighthearted thing.
Okay, any comments from the audience or online about this hearing?
So, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
So just to be clear, the applicant is okay to bring more rock in,
Yes, we are authorizing them, and we put in the minutes that they are allowed
because
to.
you know how neighbors can be. They see a truck going in there and they start calling, they're gonna be calling. If you're on the,
And everyone's on vacation.
Caribbean on the beach, they're gonna be calling you.
And I'll say that we
That it's okay.
have reviewed the
Just on
matter,
property,
and
Jim?
it is approved subject to our meeting.
Just put up a
It
sign,
didn't
this
look
is
like you had
okay.
much room.
And Mr. Chair, it
As
says
much as I can.
proposed area for future receiving of boulders and stones. Is that,
Hold on, one at a time, one at a.
It is on the plan, yes.
it is on the plan. So that, is that the old right of way basically that's showing in boulders?
Looks like there's the gate.
Right. So that's a big, yeah.
And that's the site that's the part of the site we went out to today.
I wouldn't want to see a whole lot of rocks within 25 feet of the wetlands, just out of principle. But if you keep it up more towards this front, it looks like a lot of room to be.
We can't get in any closer to.
The rocks are only there because they're gonna go up on the wall, they're not staying.
Right, but you're not going to be putting big pile, right? It's all going to be spread. I don't know how you're going to dump it in the Lake Chain or I don't know, but it's.
I mean, if you'll allow me to stack them, I'll gladly stack them.
Is this out of the buffer zone? Everything's out of the buffer zone?
What we're doing now is out of the buffer zone. I mean, it will certainly be a lot easier to deal with when we start the process if we can stack them out of the buffer zone. And I could probably get 3 times the amount down there if I was able to stack them. That would be, I mean, it would save so much aggravation rather than putting them at the top, putting one stone down at a time versus taking them from the bottom and start your wall. I mean, everything has to start at the bottom. You know, I mean, it would just, I mean, from a construction standpoint, you know, you start your base. If you have all the rocks right there versus having them at the top of the pile, at the top of a hill, now you're putting them down one at a time, it seems redundant to do that. When, if I can get as many as I can at the bottom part, which is out of the buffer zone, now as they start coming across, they just keep putting one in, putting one in, and working their way up. It would just make such total sense to just allow me to stack them right there.
Mr. Chair, I have no problem allowing him to stack them, but the question is out of the buffer zone. So that's, you know, it's.
So where they are right now, it would just be putting some on top, dumping some more, and then putting on the top. It would stay out of the buffer zone. 'Cause we're
I'm
not-
sorry, I wasn't
It
on
is
the
in the
field
buffer
visit.
But where we'd be putting them now is out of the buffer zone.
Then out
That
of
whole thing
the,
is,
Yes.
isn't it? That whole area. is.
The area where it's open without, you know, there's nothing on it now, that's out of the buffer zone. So if I was able to take what's there and just put it on top of the piles over there,
In
and
the
then
buffer.
dump some more, and
It's pile of
just,
rock, not
you can
gravel.
always stack maybe one high.
It's all natural.
In place, because
They're gonna be big rocks.
One at a time, one at a time.
Again. It's,
Gotta work with what we have here. I'm just trying to simplify the process, that's all. You know, I mean, there is no better silt fence than having those boulders there. I mean, nothing, I mean, the material's been there for 7 years, it hasn't gone anywhere anyways. You know, so, you know.
Okay, well, we have this on the screen, so let's take advantage of it.
Right, Mr. Chair, it seems to me that if this scales 1 to 30 inches, the right of way is maybe 15 feet that is called for the proposed area. So I don't know if you could keep it in like the first 8 feet and then.
Let me ask the question, Isabella, could you highlight where here's the wetlands down here, so what is the jurisdictional area for the Conservation Commission?
Everything within the 100-foot buffer zone.
Okay, so this is this line here.
Yeah.
So
And there is rock up where Bob and I were standing today
Yes.
was here. There is rock up in this area. So you're talking here, or you want to stack on top of the rock that is in?
I can't possibly get in here with any time. If I could just take dump here, stack on top, dump here, stack on top, dump here, stack on top. There's rock here now, just put it on top of there. I don't want to go any, can't go
Get in there anyway.
further, you know, I mean, it's just.
Yeah, so if it's outside of the buffer zone.
It's impossible to make a mistake the way it's set up right now.
Okay, so here's the 100-foot line.
Yes. So all the area where the stone is already there, I just want to put it on top of it.
Right.
Just to be able to create a better access to starting here. You know, rather than starting from here, having one machine up here, one machine down here, handing them a boulder to put it in place. It just
Okay,
doesn't make sense.
So Bob, you were out there today. Are you okay with them putting a layer of stone in this section down here that you were walking around?
no, that's fine.
Okay, so other people who've been on the sidewalk, you have an opinion one way or the other?
I don't see a problem. It's gonna be big rocks.
Yes. Okay.
Mr. Court, could you go up and just run your handle on where you're gonna build the wall once you get a stop sign? And that's in the buffer zone, correct?
Correct.
Those rocks that he's gonna bring in are gonna wind up in the buffer zone. They're gonna be half yard to yard and a half boulders. They're not gonna roll all by themselves any further into the wetland when they dump them.
And it's all silt fence behind it. Everything is protected. This just makes such total sense to put this wall in place.
So what we're saying
Absolutely.
is that between now and the next meeting, you have permission from the Concom, and I can put it in writing if
Please,
we
it'd
get
be great,
points.
yeah.
Isabella will write it up in this area here.
Yes.
Where we went
Yeah.
out today for our sidewalk.
And
Okay,
if I run out of space there, I will go to the top and just try to get them as close as I can to work. And that'll be the last part of the project, doing the top.
okay, any other comments from the commission?
At least from the top, Jim, at least you can just lay them in place at that point. You'll be high enough up.
Once we start.
Once the base is done.
The base has to get done first, you know?
Okay.
I mean, to get as many in there.
Are we still waiting for a design by a licensed geotechnical engineer?
No, that would be done after they decide what they're doing, what's getting built on the site, and then they would finalize what the walls would be.
No, that's not true.
No? I
It's,
got it wrong?
it's based on whether it's a 1-to-1 slope or 2-to-1 slope.
Or if
1-to-1,
the
it was,
commission wants to require it.
Well, it does have something to do with what's gonna be built there as well.
well, whatever's gonna be built there isn't gonna change the fact that you're gonna have a wall there with stones. So, I mean, you can put a car wash there and you're still gonna have a wall with stones.
Okay, so based on your visiting the site today, what do you recommend? Or what would you?
Well, like I said, Karen,
Yes,
what are we doing for a slope?
a one slope,
1-to-1?
yes.
So, I mean, in their own notes, they suggested that it was engineered.
Okay, we don't need to decide that now because we're not
Well,
going to
you
close.
do, if you want it in the public hearing process, you should ask for it
Okay,
in a timely manner so that it doesn't get delayed further.
okay.
You're not gonna require it.
Would you be okay if I speak to Karen for a minute, seeing that I've never even spoke to her?
Sure.
Thank you. Karen?
Yeah.
If I can get a 2-to-1 slope in there, that's what I'm planning on doing.
If you can get a 2-to-1 slope, you won't have it engineered.
Correct.
But it's designed for a 1. So if you don't want it at a 1-to-1 slope and you want to make it a 2-to-1, you will not have to have it engineered.
Basically means that you're dumping rock on what the slope is there now, right?
The slope there now is
Yeah, pretty much.
How you want the slope?
The
You know,
slope,
the top further on.
the slope there now is roughly at a 1 to 1.5 foot slope. So for 1.5 feet, instead of a 2-to-1, it's a 1.5.
So yeah, you lose more top at that point.
You would lose more top at that. It would get, yeah, you would definitely lose more top at that point if you do a 2-to-1. If you keep it a 1-to-1, that's what you get.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It was, at the last hearing, it was pointed out the similar rock work up at Millbury shops. And I don't know if that's a 1-to-1 slope or about the same slope you were going. And as I drove by it, that's a beautiful piece of work. It seems to me those weren't just rocks put in place. The big rocks were, and then they got little rocks in between. And I wouldn't be surprised when they got something going. So at what point, I guess the question to the engineer is, at what point you should have a design by a licensed engineer? It sounds like at least a 1-to-1. You're suggesting a 2-to-1 doesn't need it. So does a 1.5 to what is the cutoff line that should have?
Well, a 1-to-1 is a really steep slope. 2-to-1, the slope becomes less. So that rock wall at a 1-to-1 slope should definitely be engineered. Bottom line.
Yeah, what kind of area do you think that I'm gonna lose if I go to a 2-to-1 slope? I mean, I'm at 1.5 right now. What am I gonna lose, another 10 feet?
You will, so see with that piece on the top of the slope, will be heading further towards the street at that point.
I don't know where it's gonna go towards the street. But
Yeah. So
just give me an idea. I mean, we're at a half foot.
it'll cut the 25 to 30 feet. So
You're saying I'm gonna lose 25 to 30 feet by going another 6 inches?
that, at a minimum that, yeah.
Is there any way you can get a
What's the
variance
bottom-
for a
what's the
1.5
bottom
foot?
They're going up 24 feet, Mike. They gotta go 48 feet in if they go to 2-to-1.
Bottom elevation is 402 and the top is 428. So we're looking at 26 feet.
So 26 feet is 52 feet in if they go up
At a
at a
2-to-1.
2-to-1.
So it's twice as much as a 1-to-1. You're
Twice as much as a 1.
So you measure from here to end, that's, and go straight up, that's where the top of your slope's gonna be.
So if it's about an inch, you're gonna be about 2 inches, so, yeah. You're gonna lose prime spot, so I don't know, it's a question of how high up you come to, can you lower the whole site down, or it's at.
All right, I believe what I'm hearing is from the commission is that if you're asking us to issue an order of conditions for a 1-to-1 slope, we would require a geotechnical engineer to help stabilize that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and if you work with the engineering company and you come up with the plan for a 2-to-1 slope, that would not be required.
So I'm much higher than I need to be right now because I'm sloped to the street. So that's, I need to get with Mark and
Yeah.
make a decision on where this needs to be, because I don't want to lose prime real estate, obviously.
Yeah.
I also don't want to, commit to something that's unnecessary.
You should look at that, because you don't need to be up that, in my opinion, you don't need to be up that high.
If you see it right now.
Yeah, it's quite a slope.
I mean, you can see that from the street, it slopes up.
Because the fill was brought in at one point, or it was ledge
No, we
was
pushed it over.
blasted and pushed over.
Now, there was no,
Blasted a lot of material.
I was watching the fabric trucks bring it in. So, I mean, the fill was brought in, and it's gonna sink anyways, because you lose what, 25% on compaction after so many years? Like, you would know that better, wouldn't you?
Not of rock, you have
On
compaction.
regular fill, if you fill an area, when it compacts, you lose what, about 25%? If you put 4 feet in, it compacts down to.
Depends on the material, that was ledge,
Yeah.
chopped up.
Processed gravel, and they don't have compaction.
Stone doesn't compact, doesn't settle.
Not the stuff around here.
Let me, I gotta work on that height and
Okay.
figure this out before I say yes.
So they're gonna come back anyway, so.
Exactly.
I think you'll save a whole lot of money if you could.
So 4 weeks and 4 weeks.
I could
to-
And a better site, I would think, but I don't.
At least on a good note, Jim, at least you can get the stone in, which is
Yeah,
nice.
to answer his question.
Because that right there is what you're really looking for. is the stone.
Okay, any discussion more from the commission? Any from the audience or online? Seeing no hand raised, I'll entertain a motion to continue.
I make a motion to continue the hearing for 112 Oxford Road to July 24th. Is that our next date?
24. Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. See you all in a month.
Thank you. Everybody have a nice
Thanks,
Fourth.
thanks,
You
guys.
too.
Thank you very
I'll
much.
get the letter out on Monday then,
Thank you. You're gonna send a copy of Mark also?
to your house.
Yeah, just send it to my house, but you send a copy of Mark.
Yeah.
And, is there any idea about the DEP number?
No.
You don't even know,
Yeah,
especially now with everybody going on vacation.
We're just
they're,
in the queue.
yeah, they do it in order of receival.
I just don't, I don't want the guy on the top to finish what he's doing, because I got him.
They're still better than the evening.
I just don't want to move all this stuff out and have to be able to throw it back in.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, they should be getting it back. I've sent follow-up the last 2 weeks asking for all the numbers that we're working on.
Appreciate that.
The lake is getting impacted. We're gonna have to work real hard to keep the town beach from being impacted because we haven't got a DEP number.
It's been there 100 years.
Well, I've got people on Facebook asking, when's the lake getting treated? How come you haven't
Yeah,
done it?
I had that question as well.
Until we get DEP giving us a permit, water and wetlands can't treat the lake. We have to get a permit to before they're able to put the chemicals in.
I thought it was up to this board to do that.
No,
We will
you're an agent of the state, so
We have to-
they issue the numbers.
The state has to weigh in and say, yeah, you're allowed to keep doing what you've been doing for the last 20 years. Because it's a new permit application. So anyway, we're done with that. I will now move to Lake Nipmuc hearing where we can complain.
Is everyone gonna be notified when it's done?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, definitely. Dan Byer in the Parks Department will be notifying people.
The sign will be put up.
Same as every
Just one
year.
day, and then you can be in the water.
It's just the problem is that we haven't been able to get it done yet.
We're gonna treat it on the 3rd.
My dog will be up there.
There's.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, so notice of intent, Lake Nipmuc, map, DEP yet to be determined. We are the actual applicants.
Can I just
We're
move to
working.
continue?
Well, let me finish saying what's going on with this. There is one person at DEP who looks over the limited permit applications for lake treatments. We're in her queue. We're not on the top of her queue, so we're just going to have to wait until we get down and they get back to us with the number. when that happens, even if it's when Isabella's on vacation, I'll work with Dan Byer to see what we can do about scheduling the treatment at the day of the week that will least impact the beach, and then we will go through the usual process of putting up signs and notifying everybody. We may end up having an off-cycle meeting. I would do the paperwork and the agenda, public notice while Isabella's on vacation with just that particular agenda item so that we can approve it ourselves. So
Still
before.
gonna have to get the permit out though, and it's 10-day appeal period.
Yes, exactly. So we'll see how that flows out. So I'll ask the usual question. Is the applicant willing to defer this for an extra 2 weeks? So you're, okay.
We
we're
don't
all-
have a choice. So I move to continue the public hearing for Lake Nipmuc to July 24th.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. Great. Moving on to agenda item number 7. 31 North Bridge Street enforcement order. Review wetland resource area impact plan that we required. Engineer coming up.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Brian Dunn, with MDL Land Development and Permitting. I'm the principal of the firm with offices at 5 Bristol Drive in southeastern Mass. The last time we were here, in regards to this enforcement order, we were asked to prepare some more detailed plans in regards to the difference in the alteration of the lot, where the path is, where the wetland buffers are as well. We also were requested to delineate the bank of the intermittent stream, and we were asked to put that on a plan, and also your agent asked for larger scale plans, so the detail would be a little bit more clearer to the commission. We were asked to provide that information by June 12th. We have done that, and as a point of record, we also submitted color photos to the commission, which did not end up on the public website for submission of material. So I don't know if that's an issue or not. Something that might need to be discussed, because that was part of the information that we submitted.
They're in there.
Oh, they are, okay. So I have 2 copies of the plans and 2 copies of the photos as requested. I'll actually just sign one transmit. You just need to set up my computer so I can take some notes.
Just one.
Yeah, I just need one transmittal back. One transmittal is for you. Thank you very much. So I just want to make sure for the record that we did submit the material on a timely fashion as required by this commission. And we're able to do that as required by June 12th. So we're here this evening also on this enforcement order. And also just to show you, the plans are in color, so they're probably very, very easy to read. If Isabella can,
I've seen it. I've
okay. If Isabella can put the plans up for the commission to see, as well as the public, and then I can talk about the plan in general. So what I'd like to focus, we've also identified the areas of alteration in the wetlands, areas in the buffer zones, and we quantified them on the plans in great detail. And as you can see on the plan that's on the screen, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
The existing path is in this orange-brown color. These other green areas, this green area here is really that detailed landscaping area that Jeff had created over the years, probably dating back to 1985 or somewhere around there, and has enhanced the landscaping features in that area. You can look at the photos that he also provided, which shows how this area was beautified by the landscaping that he provided. All of these other little areas in green are areas of, temporary disturbance in the wetlands or in the buffer zone. And as we've identified, different areas of the bank that have been altered, they're in blue. So we quantified an area on either side because it was identified during the on-site that, during the maintenance and upkeep of this path, that over time, there was probably some, what I'm gonna call it, scope creep on either side of the culverts that are there, so that some bank was altered. So we did quantify that bank. All of that detailed information is up here in the disturbed area calculations. So what I'd like to do is, proceed with a wetland restoration plan, based on, these areas in green that we've outlined around the path while keeping the path intact. Now, it is my understanding that two things in regards to regulations, the Wetland Protection Act allows for this type of activity as an exempt activity for the maintenance and upkeep in a path of private use. Also, your bylaw states the same. So in your bylaw chapter, I guess it's 28. If you go to section 7 exemptions.
What was that wording, maintenance or what? Sorry.
Upkeep, I think that's what I said. Maintenance and upkeep.
Or upkeep, yeah. So not necessarily development of.
No, so I'm sorry, Mr. Kaufman wasn't here at the other hearings, so I need to bring him up to speed a little bit. So we've determined and demonstrated to this commission, Peter, that the path has been in existence for many, many years. And we've excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I didn't know, did Leah have a question?
I don't think we determined that or not that at our last.
No, I said we determined. I didn't say you determined. We determined and provided factual information to this commission that proved with aerial photos back to the 1930s that this path was in existence. Also, during the on-site, it was also deemed and determined that the material of the culvert and the culverts that were there in existence had dated material back to at least the 1950s. That proves that the path was there, pre-existing, non-conforming, not only to the Wetland Protection Act, but also to the local bylaw that you have, which was approved back in 2012 and then promulgated by town meeting in August of that same year. So exemptions under D are minor activities, unpaved pedestrian walkways for private use. Jeff has explained to this commission that this path was for private use for his mom when he bought that house, period. Yes, he has, he has maintained it, brought in some material, made it look better, fixed the culverts that were already there, and plantings of native species and trees and shrubs.
I don't think cherry trees are native.
Don't
in
interrupt.
ground cover.
I'm now gonna ask
Write your
members of the
questions down
commission,
and
shush. I'm going to ask members of the commission to direct all comments to the chair and I will recognize you. Stop interrupting people. You too. Okay, please
Thank you,
continue.
Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. It also states that plantings of native species, trees and shrubs in ground cover, excluding of lawns. He hasn't planted any lawns. So he's planted trees. We even saw and heard from the wetland botanist that, a bunch of the trees and bushes that were planted by Jeff are wetland species and native species and non-invasive. It's not like he went out there and planted Japanese knotweed all over the place. So the other thing is fencing, stone walls, stacking of cords of wood. Okay? As long as they're not a barrier to wildlife. So we have shown you that, these stone walls that he's also put up and some of the riprap or stones that he's placed around these culverts, there's nothing prohibiting wildlife from using that. And also, based on the pictures that we've shown and the 2 or 3 sidewalks that we've had, Mr. Chairman and members of this commission, there is no erosion happening at this site. So we want to proceed with a restoration plan of those areas that I pointed in green, except for the paths that are there. The paths can stay in where they are. We're not changing any of the culverts or making any more changes. Prepare a wetland restoration plan, get it to this commission, and if all parties are agreeable, we would like to file a notice of intent. So this restoration plan can be in the record with this notice of intent and have this commission issue an order of conditions for that restoration work to proceed with a permit and with conditions from this commission, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, does that conclude your opening statement?
So far, but I would.
Okay, well, I expect you'll be responding to people's questions.
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. So my summary of what I just heard is that because there was a previously existing non-conforming use, you are requesting that the commission allow that non-conforming use to continue when we're reviewing your restoration plan.
That is correct. Right now, there is no activity ongoing there. As far as I know, Jeff and his mom and maybe his family might walk up and down it like they wanted to and have been. But there's no activity ongoing. And I think that this is a prudent and most direct path to secure a permit, protect the resource areas, and have this commission condition it appropriately for that restoration plan to be executed.
Okay, my question when I saw the plans a couple weeks ago, how are you differentiating between a wetlands disturbance area and a temporary wetlands disturbance area? What does temporary mean?
So temporary means areas that were, if you remember when we were on site, there were areas that were kind of mowed down with the machine, probably as they went around and turned around and so on and so forth. So we're saying that that's temporary and that's actually going to grow back. But my thought is that part of that plan is to use that area as a restoration as well. I'm not going to say let it grow back. Let's put some wetland seed mix in there. Let's talk about different bushes or shrubs and maybe some small trees that can go in those areas to enhance the growth to come back. So that is the intent. I mean, we did say they're temporary because they just got mowed over.
Okay. So the question that we will want to talk about tonight primarily is the point that I just raised. Will the commission agree or disagree with your request that we will continue to allow a non-conforming use within the resource area and within the buffer zone? That's something that we will want to, I think we should be able to make a decision on that by the end of the night. So we'll start with the agents asking, raising her points in response to what you submitted, and then I'll start working my way across the table, and we'll go through once, and then if we need to, we'll go through a second time. So Isabel, your questions.
Yeah, I want to start with clarifying the regulations you read. So 310 CMR 10.02B, activities within the buffer zone. Any activity other than minor activities identified below, proposed within 100 feet of an area specified hereinafter called the buffer zone, sorry, I don't need to read all of them. The area subject to the areas within the buffer zone. Minor activities as described below in section 2 within the buffer zone and outside of any area specified in 10.021 through AE are not otherwise subject to regulation under the Wetland Protection Act, provided that the work is performed solely within the buffer zone in a manner so as to reduce the potential for adverse impact to resource area during construction and with post-construction measures implemented to stabilize disturbed areas. Number 2 goes on to say the following minor activities, provided they comply with 310 CMR 10.021, are not subject to regulation in the buffer zone. Unpaved pedestrian walkways less than 30 inches wide for private use and less than 3 feet for public access on conservation property. I do not agree that this path is less than 30 inches wide, and therefore I do not find it is exempt. Fencing, again, minor activities in the buffer zone. Vista pruning, activity that is located more than 50 feet from the mean annual high water line in riverfront area or BBW, whichever is farther. So vista pruning outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. Planting of native trees, shrubs, and species in the buffer zone. So that's my clarification on that, and the bylaw cannot be less strict. You know, it's saying unpaved pedestrians, it may not specify the 30 inches wide, but it can't be less strict than the act. My second question, the aerial images that were provided by the applicant, in my opinion, are unclear to demonstrate where the path was. The images I showed at the last meeting in 2020 show the intermittent streams not altered in the way they are. One of them even shows a bridge in the largest area of alteration with the largest culvert that is 20 feet wide. I don't see that in the 2020 image. I see a footbridge. And I think if we're talking about, you know, temporary, the green, you know, yes, that's what we want to see the restoration, or the commission should want to see the restoration plan for, but this 20-foot wide road that's being used as a road is not a 30-inch private use walking path. Further, I think the calculations, the temporary and permanent, they're not including, for clarification, they're not including this path, right? Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
They do not include the path because it was existing, non-conforming, before the Wetland Protection Act was ever even thought of, and before your local bylaw.
Okay.
Now here, this is the other thing is, even though you have a bylaw, and even though we have the Wetland Protection Act, the DEP allows you, this commission, doesn't say you must issue an order of conditions. It says you may, with conditions. It's up to this board to determine the path going forward. And the path going forward, we're showing you that path. We're here to discuss, you know, that path with conditions, and we have shown and proved that this path was existing before these two bylaws or state regulations were enacted.
Are you able to make a statement of how wide the path was before your applicant bought the property and started working in the area?
I would have to give you an educated answer, I would have to look at the aerials and then compare those aerials, and superimpose them on my drawings, and then say, okay, is it 2 feet, 3 feet? I don't know. But we do know that, through Jeff's maintenance, yes, the path got a little bit wider, and while fixing the culverts. And maybe the path got a little bit wider, just due to that. There was no malice, there was no ill intent here. This was an exercise to be able to create, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I would hope that all your commission members are focused and they're not sitting on their phone.
I'm asking a
I
question
think
about the sale of the property.
I'm really offended by that. I'm not sitting on my phone, Mr. Chairman. I'm taking this very serious, and I would hope that your members would do the same.
So am I. I was looking at the date of the sale because I know somebody who sold the property.
The date of the sale does not matter.
No, it does, because it tells what the story of when things were altered, that's all. So I don't appreciate being lectured about being on my phone and I was getting printed information. It wasn't anything in malice compared
Okay,
to.
let's move on.
So the path going forward is for us to prepare a restoration plan, for you to agree on the restoration plan, and for us to file a notice of intent in order for you to prepare, vote on a permit, and issue it with conditions so that the work can proceed under the direction of this commission and your agent, and get these areas restored.
Okay. Isabella, do you have follow-up or other comments?
Yeah, I think to get to that, I would want to know the square footage calculation of the path that was expanded upon after purchase in 2018. So because those calculations aren't in there, how much of the path is in BVW and how much of the path is in bordering land subject to flooding? Because those are the kind of numbers, if we're under the threshold of 5,000 square feet of alteration, that's when we would start looking at, what we're gonna move forward to a process of an NOI. But if we're out of those jurisdictional limits, then we don't want to start entertaining a permitting process when we're maybe talking about a larger scope of alteration.
So I heard earlier this evening the word assume.
Mm-hmm.
In a statement, we all know what that means. So if I superimpose an aerial that's from 1938 that can get very blurry at 40 scale, I'm making a gross assumption on the expansion of that path, and could put this way over the 5,000 square feet alteration, which then takes it out of your hands, and then I have to go to the DEP to get a water quality certification. So it's either we stay here or we just cut bait and take off and we file things with the DEP.
Okay, well, we'll see how.
So, because I know what's gonna end up happening. That path is quite long, and I know what the areas of those other areas, square foot areas are accumulating to. So if I even took 2 feet over that, we're gonna be over 5,000.
Okay.
So I think that's something the path that we don't wanna go down, because it's gonna take it out of your hands.
Okay, well.
So I would rather stay here, work with this commission and your agent to prepare that restoration plan, to get it in front of you, and therefore, after that, file a notice of intent, get a DEP file number, and call it a restoration type of a project, and then have this commission discuss, deliberate, and prepare conditions for the restoration to proceed.
Okay,
Mr. Dunn, so in the notice of intent, you're picturing that the alteration that's, and jumping to 1938 versus 2018, when the property was purchased, if you are over that threshold for a 401 cert, you're proposing this would be restoration and not applying for that.
Yes, because if we can, through the chair, if we can demonstrate to you that there's a good way of restoring the permanent altered areas as well as the temporary, and there is a good restoration plan, and we know that the growth will happen, and condition it for 3 years of monitoring or 5 years of monitoring, whatever the commission is going to require to make sure that the land is restored and there's no further alteration of anything out there. And then be able to say, here is the width of the path. Jeff can expand on it and say, and also put in the permit that he can't do that if you'd like. So unless he has to come back in for another permit, say he wants to build a house there, or like we discussed, the developer on the other side of the land wants to buy some of the land to put a house on it, they'd have to come back for a permit through this commission. So the commission may issue an order of conditions, not must. I'm not forcing your hand. I am here because of the enforcement order to prepare a path for success, not for, putting lines in the sand.
okay.
So, and I think that we've been showing that since day one, Mr. Chairman.
So the two pieces of information we have on what the historical width of the path is: one, the aerial photographs, which are inconclusive, and two, the culverts. The culverts are there, and we can see how long they are measuring, and that's our best way of saying what was done previous to the non-performing one. And people who are on the sidewalk out there would have been able to see the culverts and form their own opinions. So
I think only the one metal is previously existing, and that's only halfway. All of the other HDPE pipes are new.
okay,
Right.
okay. So then that would be newer work that had happened since the 50s.
Since 2018 in ownership.
Yep. Okay. Do you have any other issues or questions for the applicant?
No, but I think my main point is that there's clearly in 2020 an image with a bridge, and now we have a 20-foot culvert. And I don't see how there wasn't fill brought in to do that or alteration of
Okay, so
material.
Mr. Tim, we're beating a dead horse right now.
So which culvert, can you identify that on the map?
We've already identified, and Jeff already identified, there was culverts and utility poles out there that would have been very, very visible from an aerial photo, okay? He said that they were rotting, they fell in, they crushed the culverts, so he repaired them under a maintenance of his own property. So he got rid of those utility poles, saw the pipe crushed, left part of the corrugated metal pipe that was there, put in the plastic pipe. It's a maintenance activity of his own path, of his own culvert that he bought when he bought the land.
Yes, and he did it without permitting.
Understood, but according to your own bylaw, you don't need a permit to do that.
Mr. Chair?
Is it about this specific point?
Well, yes.
Okay,
The exemption is for a pedestrian walkway. So a 12-foot cul-de-sac, and the way it's built as a roadway, so I don't think the exemption was. The bridge that got replaced, and maybe the one other culvert that's still there is metal, but you got 8 culverts, and they're all brandy new. And I would suggest that you show only the blue, that from end to end, under the existing road you had to disturb wetlands to put in that culvert. So you got orange, and then you got blue and purple, and you got some rock, and my sense is maybe the pathway was 3 feet. Now it's 10 feet. So at each crossing, there was 7 feet times whatever the length of the culvert is.
And that would push it over the 5,000.
I don't know, that's only 8 times 7, that's only 56? No, it's not gonna.
No, it's
5,000.
it's really de minimis, and that's what we did. We made the plans to show the alterations as requested. So we're here to talk about restoration now.
Okay.
You know, and we've demonstrated, yeah, you might want to call it a road, but it's not a road. It was meant and was there as a pedestrian walkway. Yes, he was maintaining it, fixing it. Yes, he made it probably a little bit bigger as he crossed the culverts and so on and so forth. I get that. We're here, we've quantified the areas, we want to go to restoration. If we're not going to go to restoration, there's nothing more to discuss.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm just questioning the quantification.
There should be no question of the quantification. We are certified engineers and professional land surveyors.
So on here.
The math is correct.
So on here, sheet C31, you show the purple, which is restoration, disturbance of a wet, permanent wetland. The blue is permanent impact of the banking. So what connects the blue to the blue is a culvert, which has a stream running through it. So before the culvert was there, that whole area got disturbed. This one, I doubt, was already there. I'll grant you the steel one was, and I'll grant you there might have been one under the bridge, but you've got 8 culverts, and there's some white area that's not considered disturbance, but it would have had to have been disturbed to put the culvert in, no?
Mr. Chairman, I'd love to answer these questions because we're back to the existing non-conforming. Yes, there was a path there. Yes, there were culverts of some sort there. Jeff maintained them, repaired them, put gravel down on the path. Yes, we're saying yes to all that. It's beating a dead horse. It's an existing non-conforming use. Path is the restoration now.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about restoration, let's do that. If we're just gonna hear about this pipe, this bank, it's not gonna do anybody any good.
I saw Mike's hand raising first.
Mr. Chairman, on one hand, I agree with the applicant. Number one, let's work with it about the restoration. It's been done.
Mike, have you been to the site?
It's been done. And yes, I've been to the site. Once we put that enforcement on Conservation Commission has the right to walk that site. I don't need to walk with a crowd of people to look at what I look at. Okay? Again, he sent us photographs of what's there. He's not denying what's there. For instance, photo number 12. I want to be interested in how he plans on taking care of that, not argue about how wide the path is. I would like to keep it in our jurisdiction so that we have control. And it's our duty as conservation members, but also to the taxpayer, to work with them, not against them. So he's here showing us what he did. He's certainly not trying to hide anything in these pictures. Photo number 13. When he comes in with the restoration plan, that's what I'll be looking at. Show me what 13 is. So he's certainly not trying to hide anything. I believe he's being open, and I believe we should work with him so we maintain control of what's going on there.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yeah, I'll go to our agent.
I also agree that we want to work forward. I think just the commission should see the square footage calculation of BBW that includes the path that may have been altered. It can be separate from this purple and green, but I just think that's a piece of information the commission should be able to review, and same with bordering land subject to flooding.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the thing is in order to determine that, we would have to alter the path, dig down in many, many areas to determine historic wetlands, if they were there. And I think that that is an exercise in futility and does not serve the purpose of this board nor the environment. It's going to disturb more things out there than we want to.
Okay.
The path is the restoration. The
Okay.
path can and should remain in place because it's existing, non-conforming,
Okay.
period.
Before I start working through other commissioners, I'll exercise my prerogative and ask a single question. If we are able to come to a successful resolution a couple of years from now, what does the applicant see the path being used for? Will it just be for foot traffic, or will they continue to use it to move materials into the backyard of the other property, using motor vehicles and trucks?
Look, ultimately, originally, my original plan was I wanted to plant more trees. You know, I wanted to plant more trees, I wanted to plant more bushes. I wanted, you know, Homestead was kind of like one of my heroes, and I wanted to just have a really beautiful garden. That was my goal. And, you know, I've done that with my house, and I wanted to have the same, you know, and so I think that you can see that even like the stone walls I built stone walls. I like those types of stone walls. That's all I did. Okay, that was my goal all along. So is it easier for a tree guy to come in and when he's doing the back of my yard to be able to put his bucket truck down there and do pruning? Of course it is. Is it easier for the mulch guy to go down there and drop 30 or 40 or 50 yards of mulch so that they don't have to hand cart it from the front of my property? Yes. Is it something I would like to be able to do in the future? Absolutely. Is it going to be the end of the world if you guys decide that this taxpayer who's lived in this town since the early 90s is not allowed to do that? What am I going to do? Do I think it's fair? No, I don't think it's fair. But it is what it is. You know, there's nothing here that I've done here that has just come in here with malintent. And I mean, and some of the things that have been said to me in the back of my property have been offensive, really, quite frankly. Some of the things that have been said to me by people. So it's not like I'm here to, I came here from the first day with my hat in my hand. And that's all I've been trying to do is make it right. And it's cost me a significant amount of money. I don't have things on a piece of paper that I hand wrote, that other people come in here. And so I sit here with a professional who's highly regarded in the field, works for other communities. I try to go out and get the best of the best to move forward.
Okay. So,
And I think that if I can, to add to that, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, if we get to the path of notice of intent, that can be one of your conditions, that if he has to bring in equipment to do landscaping, notification to you and to your agent prior to the access of the property with any kind of machinery, and to determine the day of that work to be approved, or at least discussed with your agent prior to it happening. And that can be something that can be put as a condition of approval.
okay.
And limited to 1 or 2 times a year or 3 times a year, in the spring for cleanup, in the fall for cleanup, and so on and so forth.
Okay, given that, I'll start. Ms. Isabella, do you have anything further?
No.
Okay, so we'll start working down. Bob?
One question I have is,
Yes,
I
sir.
know that when we spoke on the site walk, we had asked about trying to find out how much wider the path got. And hearing tonight, you really find that difficult to want to do.
Not difficult and wanting to do. I'm just thinking of it as an engineering exercise and a calculation, and knowing the date and how old the photos are and how blurry they're gonna get when I superimpose them to a certain scale.
What I was hoping that is with the small machine he has, just take a bucket width, drag it from the edge of where the fill, or where the driveway ends in until you see where old material was. Which would then give you an indication of where the original path was. Which then, you do that every 100 feet. Not a lot of disturbance, gives you an idea of where the path was, how wide it was, and how deep of material was put in. So that's
We
one.
could do that, but I don't know if we're going to be able to identify older gravel from new gravel, or what path was there. The only way we could try to do it is by digging those holes and seeing what happened. But at the end of the day, what is the result? The result would probably be that we're over 5,000 square feet, and then you instantly are gonna lose control.
So then the other thought I had on that was, without having to disturb any of the bridges or the culverts, would you be agreeable to shrinking that path down to 8 feet or 6 feet? Bringing it back to a walk path the way it was originally intended.
Well, don't say that's what it was originally intended. If it was a cart path, it was for carts.
Okay, well, either way, shrink it to what it was intended for.
I think that we can, take it under advisement, Mr. Chairman and Bob, but I think that doing that is gonna cause more harm than good.
And Mr. Sweet, if I may, if you go back and look at those photos, even when I walked in the back there were tractor paths. That was some kind of farm at some point. And you can see, all I did was follow. If you go back and look at the old photos and really study them, not with whatever Isabella has provided, but if you go back and look at the photos, you can go back there. In fact, I can even go back further down behind that house and into other people's houses and walk behind other people's houses, and you can still see the remnants of those tractor marks. So there was tractors that went back in there. What they did back there, I don't know. But those photos clearly show that there were tractor marks there. And when I used to walk that path, before I even owned the property, that's the path that I would walk. No, like I said, I mean, I'm throwing out suggestions out there that would make it at least. Well, everything costs me money, and quite frankly, I'd like to move forward with working with the town to make things right. I mean, this isn't a cheap endeavor. And so it's something that, I would like to move forward to resolve the matter.
So Bob, I believe their response to your asking, they can examine the existing pathway every 50, 100 feet. Their point is, what would the results of that survey give you information to make a decision? How would you decide differently based on the results of that test? Well, at least you'll get a more accurate opinion of what was originally there. Because right now, we went there, we saw, and no disrespect, you did a beautiful job. It's whether or not it's following what was existing, and maintenance may be 6 inches over, here and there so that you can make the path go, but 3 feet on each side isn't maintenance. 3 feet is widening the path.
Okay, so through Mr. Chairman, so if we go, if we make this exercise of doing all these tests,
right,
we're gonna have to put erosion control up there, so on and so forth. Get a machine out there, do multiple tests, multiple erosion control, and I'm a betting man, and my gut usually is right. And my gut is gonna tell me that once I do that and I quantify that, I won't be in front of you anymore.
Yes, and so.
And I'm telling you that right now. So the path is restoration, notice of intent, you approve, review and approve, issue with conditions and we move forward. And the path is the path with, and maybe a condition that when he maintains it and has to fix a rut or something, he cannot expand on it. Something in detail. And we will work with this commission to make those conditions appropriate for this project.
Okay, so my direction to you from the chair for you to think about on this issue is, are you interested in having the town of Mendon work with the applicant on this matter, or are you interested, or would, if it turns out that there's more than 5,000 square feet, it's the same situation as other properties in town where the DEP issues a superseding order and we wait for them to come back and tell us what's going on.
I think they're gonna do that anyway.
We're not over to you yet. Okay, so that's just something, if we carry through on the request, the applicant saying it's probably going to trigger a DEP superseding order.
No, I'm going to stand corrected.
No.
It's not a superseding order. Once we reach past 5,000 square feet, you no longer have the authority to be the permit granting authority.
Okay.
The permit granting authority is the DEP under 401 water quality certification.
Okay, thank you for correcting me.
You're very welcome.
So if you're done, we'll move to Susan next.
I have the sentiment about, it's great to be moving forward, but some of these items that Bob brought up and whatnot, will likely be necessary to delineate fully the extent of what was there before restoring it. So I guess we'll have to wait to see, what the plan is for that, as well as discovery and stuff.
Well, it's the same issue, that
Yeah.
if we investigate, at the moment,
Yes.
we can say, please we have a restoration plan. Do we want to work with them on tweaking the existing plan that they provided, or do we want to do more information delving, which may take the process out of our hands?
I guess we'll have to see what the plan exactly is before we can decide that.
This is it.
That's.
Well, this is really an area calculation plan that was asked for. Now we're gonna take these areas in green. We're gonna show erosion control, we're gonna show details of construction, we're gonna show the plants that we're gonna coordinate with the botanist to make sure that they are the appropriate plantings for this, the normal wetland seed mix and so on and so forth, added to the plans as part of the restoration. And then we bring that detail back to you, and then we file a notice of intent.
Okay,
Yeah, I didn't have that in my electronic files.
okay.
Okay,
This was
the
just,
plan-
this was delivered today.
Oh, okay.
But it should have been in your email. All of those plans that are in front of Mr. Chairman is exactly what was in the email.
Back in the 12th?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
so check.
Along with the pictures.
Okay, so Leah,
I'll be short because I've been sitting here for a while.
okay,
The restoration plan that I see,
this isn't a restoration plan yet, this is a
okay,
square
what
footage.
you've marked up. By the way, your cartography is great. GIS is great. Your map is great. The only thing that's not great is the amount of damage that was done to the wetland. And I don't know that I'm gonna be able to come to an agreement with what you're suggesting. So I think that the DEP, that might be the way to go.
Okay,
Maybe we're just a small commission and this is too big for us. And DEP can come in and make better determinations than we can.
Well, what we can do is hire a peer.
We could do a peer
specialist
reviewer, sure.
And have our own wetland scientists go out and have conversations with their wetland scientists. If you feel that is necessary because you're not comfortable, and I'm sure the other
I think
commissioners
that's
agree.
a great idea, Chairperson, and
Okay.
I think that that would help us to get
Okay,
maybe a little bit closer, I don't know.
okay, do you have other issues?
Well, I mean, that's my whole issue, but I'm good,
Okay,
I'm good.
Peter?
I appreciate the reference to Homestead, and you do have good taste, and I love your stone wall. And planting trees is a good thing. In the right place, the right trees. So hopefully we can work together and allow you to pursue your vision. My main concern is, you let him build a cart path through his backyard, and so that. My other concern more specifically is going forward. I would love to go forward working together, but I need some element of trust. And to say that there's no erosion at site, when I believe on the walk that I did go on, I don't think I missed too many meetings, there was raw silt at the headland, and so, and just some upfront. Always asked, who put in the new culverts? I can see that there were 2 historic ones. So just it's been done in the last 4 years to say, oh, I don't know so that's just being open with the facts, and I'll leave it at that. I'd love to, but maybe.
I'd like to address Judy's concern. Okay, so the silt buildup could be from the flow of the water, could be. In the wetlands area, even in the temporary alteration, there wasn't erosion issues. So that's what I observed when I was out there. Also, as we've stated before, to Peter through the chair, is that, yes, you're gonna permit a restoration plan. You are not permitting this path. You are going to permit this path in regards to no further expansion of this path as part of this restoration plan. So it doesn't put you into this setting a precedent of allowing a path to be going through the wetlands or altering more than 5,000 square feet. That is not the intent here. And that should be very, very clear as part of the permit, if this board so wishes to issue it. That it is not about the approval of a path, but yet a wetland restoration plan for alteration of wetlands and buffer zones.
You follow up? Okay.
Oh, and also back to the trust thing.
Yeah.
I came here, first night I was on the TV, it didn't work. The last 2 nights I've been here. I've done what I've been asked to do. I've prepared a Picasso of a set of plans. Okay, these plans make the Sistine Chapel look like a piece of scrap paper. And I was there in April. Okay, so the level of trust, Mr. Chairman, this commission should be there now, because I have done what I've asked to do, and I've said what I've said, and I've done what I've done.
And on schedule.
That is correct. So that level of trust should be up here right now. And then going forward, what you're going to receive is following that level of trust.
Okay, so
Mr. Chair, no mistrust of the engineer and the technical report. Just wanting an open answer as to when the culverts were put in. And maybe that's not the question to the engineer, but I never got a clear statement. There was some question, oh, the landscaper did it, or he knew it, so I understand, so that's it. Mr. Mike.
okay, over to Mike.
Last but not least, as I still go by what I said earlier in the meeting, and I continue to look at this packet of pictures, and the thing that I see, I don't know if anybody else is looking at these pictures and seeing more than what's in there. So for instance, photo number 1 shows the entranceway of the house up there. It's all nice and level. Photo number 2 shows you going through the woods. Does anybody see what's missing?
All the
Water.
stone piles and mulch piles.
And trees that have been chopped up.
Yeah, Christopher. we-
What I see is missing.
Lollipop trees.
What I immediately saw was missing. When I looked at this picture, I said, oh, this was taken either
In the winter.
very late winter, early spring,
It was
before
taken,
the growing season come back.
that is correct.
You go through there now, I'm sure that's not gonna look like that.
The back pages do.
Right, because as I kept looking at it, going, okay, this was in progression. Photo number 3, same thing. Photo number 4,
Still barren.
that's a cart path. That's a cart path.
It's 20 feet wide.
It's a cart path. It's a path, okay? I'm gonna get to the width of the path as I continue. Everybody had their chance to talk. It's my turn to talk. Photo number 5, same thing. Very late winter, early spring. Not a bit of green showing there. Beautiful. You can see if you're a hunter, that's what you want to go through, so you can see for what. Same with photo number 6, okay?
The point is, there's no grass growing there, or there's no.
The point is, this picture, it looks so wide open, is because it's late winter, early spring, before the growing season. My backyard, 2 months ago, looked like that. Now, you can't see the fence that I have in the back here because everything's grown in. That's what happens in the winter, in the winter. And in the spring, same with photo 8, photo 7. Photo 9. Again, as I said earlier, he's not trying to hide anything, because if he was, he certainly wouldn't have put photo number 10 in with a mulch pile and a couple of trees laying down. So again, he's trying to be honest with us. And I don't mean, I'm not directing it at you, Bob, I know I'm looking at you, but you're just too good looking, Bob. Not to look away.
Sorry.
Photo 11, same thing.
Which is on the spur trail, now it's off the.
That's a cart path. Like he said, that path has been there in the 30s when there was no wetland bylaw protection, and farmers drove their wagons, and the first people that had tractors went through there to get from one piece of property to the other. Okay? Photo number 12. He's certainly not trying to hide anything by showing us that picture. So that's what we should concentrate on. Get this restored.
That's a maroon over.
Mr. Chair.
Photo 13.
Which shows a culvert, right?
What I'm saying, does he look like he's trying to hide that he did work there? Same with 14.
Can't hide culverts.
If I was trying to hide something, I wouldn't show around that picture. And that's my point that I'm trying to make. He's here to try to make it fix the mistakes he made. I believe we should keep it, work with him, keep it in our control. Now, if you look at photo 16 at a culvert, that's the one with the metal culvert in it. You can see this was taken later because the growth is starting to come back. Photo 18.
See green stuff growing. Yeah.
Good. That green is gonna encroach. If you don't cut there, and again, we tell them, all right, we come to a reasonable decision on how wide the path should be.
Right.
A reasonable person can agree to, yeah, that's a path, okay? You stop cutting that. That'll come back on its own.
That's
And don't be shaking your head at me, because if I don't weed my garden every Saturday morning, I'm gonna have weeds in there 10 feet tall. So nature will come back. Photo number 19. If he was trying to hide something, he certainly wouldn't have put, not a smart idea to put that picture in there. Photo 20. Landscape area at north portion of site view to the north. It's green. In the fall, all those leaves are gonna come down, add to the mulch. Again, we come to a decision how wide that path should be. Stop maintaining it at 25 feet wide and maintain it at whatever is acceptable. that reasonable people will agree to. That's the whole point. I believe that's the point he's trying to
That's
make.
what I said.
If I can, Mr. Chairman, to work with Mike, the intent of those pictures, again, no malice to provide pictures in the winter or early spring versus now. It was the culmination of pictures of the multiple times that we were there. If you remember, our survey crew, when I first started in this initiation, was when there was some snow on the ground. So it was very difficult to identify areas of alteration because there was still snow, even though it was little, but it was icy snow. So we waited for it to melt and then took those pictures. So the idea was to provide those pictures, Mike, and I keyed them to the last plan. So if you looked at the picture, photo 18, and you went to the last plan, it's keyed to where that is on the site. So this commission could remember the site visit and understand where these pictures are being taken, because it's such a vast amount of woods and wetlands and uplands and so on and so forth. So it's somewhat difficult to get lost and say, well, where is that picture taken? I don't know. Now we know exactly.
I just want to put something.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's still my time.
Gonna work. Yes.
So I agree with Mike, is, we're just trying to provide some photo documentation to this commission, so it was easy for you to understand where the path is, where the piles are, or the crossings and the culverts are. That's all it was meant to me. Mike?
Get Mr. Chairman to back up what he's saying. When this was handed over,
It's in the
Peter,
record
did
now.
we not have the page open? Yeah. To the numbers, and while we was going on, I was going, oh yeah, that's 2 was over, oh, yeah, that's where it is. So again, my closing statement will be, I think it would be a waste of money to make them dig every 50 feet to dig up and see what kind of dirt's under there. Again, like the applicant said, that's gonna be expensive. Not that I care about what it's gonna cost, because whatever it costs, that's his problem, not ours. We shouldn't be looking at the cost. But if we're gonna make someone spend some money, let's not waste it. Let's get it back to what we want to see. Otherwise, he's gonna go broke and we'll be stuck with that. He'll sell, leave, probably jump off a bridge and say, my life is ruined.
With that dramatic statement, are you done?
I'm finished.
Okay, so
Which
follow-ups in order will be
Mystic
Isabella.
River, I hope you're wrong.
Follow-ups in order will be Isabella, and then Bob, and then Susan, and then Leah. So Isabella, you had a comment during the middle of that about the photos.
I think, as Bob kind of hinted at, I'm hesitant to think that there's gonna be vegetation coming through gravel pack, and you can kind of see it sloping here. There is a tiered roadway shape, so whether it's a foot of gravel across the whole way, we haven't dug anything to see. I don't think, similarly to old railroad beds or old cart paths that do have lots of vegetation growing in that are mowed. I mean, Jeff, you can say, but I don't know that you mow this. I don't think there's coming up saplings, or, maybe you do some weeding, but I don't think your landscaping crew is mowing this path. I don't think there is vegetation coming in. So I think if we're looking at, when we get to the permitting, if we're looking at reducing the size of the roadway as part of the conditions, I think there's gonna have to be material removal, not just limit the path to however feet wide the commission wants and then let it revegetate. I don't know if that's how that would happen.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, that's not gonna be on the table. We're not gonna do that. The path is the path. It's like beating a dead horse.
Okay,
So we're getting at a point of no return.
Okay,
So the path is the path. We're not changing the path.
okay, so,
We're not gonna expand on the path. We're here for restoration.
okay.
I understand that you wanna talk about the path, but the path and doing anything with the path is not gonna make the end result. In fact, if the path is the main issue, and we can just stop talking about this, I can go to the DP and start my water quality certification file
Okay.
tomorrow.
So looking at your page 1 disturbed area calculation, you are saying that what you are proposing and open to do as a follow-on restoration plan is to not do anything to the orange part, but instead work on all of the green and blue parts.
Yeah, so there are paths that are there in green.
Yes.
So those would be excluded in that restoration. So when I was here, part of my presentation, I pointed to all of the areas around the path, those areas there. So this other path that's there, that's in green, I did quantify it and show it in green. But that would be a whole nother set of discussions because there's culverts there too. So it's a path. So the intent is to restore areas in green along and I can detail them on the plan. The ones that are around the tan path or the orange path that's there, and the ones that are near the other green path that's outlined in the dashed black line. So going into the wetlands and removing all of that path and removing a culvert that's not affecting the resource areas right now is going to be more detrimental to that wetland system. So it would be better off to leave it alone, no future expansion, only maintenance. And if you want to condition it, the maintenance of that has to come back for the commission to discuss and what he's going to do before he does it.
Okay.
So there's ways of doing this. But if we're gonna get stuck on the path, there's no more ways. We just need to stop.
Okay. Isabella, do you have a follow-on?
I think I would just want to point out, so the very farthest behind where the landscape area is, so
The very farthest here, we're gonna restore. This will be restored, this will be restored, these will be restored. Either side, we're gonna restore all these little things. But that whole green path over here, no. But the other areas like this around it, yes,
and keeping the culverts.
yes.
Okay. Is that, any other points? Okay, Bob,
I don't think we have enough information.
what information would you want to get?
Like I said, I mean, we do not know what's there. I made a suggestion, shrink the pathway, plant trees along it. You don't have to dig all the dirt out if the commission finds that acceptable. Plant trees every 20 feet, whatever, along both sides, one side, whatever we decide. Shrink the path, make it so that it makes sense to not have a highway go through the woods.
Okay, so if I can paraphrase what I just heard 2 minutes ago, the position of the applicant and their engineer is that they would prefer to have, to file a DEP permit rather than work with us on the path issue.
Which, if that's the position they want to take, in my opinion, that's the position that they should.
Okay. Susan, you were waving your hand.
Just use the only calculator. No, I will just wait to see what's proposed
Okay,
at
and
this point.
Yeah, Isabella, would you mind putting the picture? Can I go up to the board for 2 seconds, Carl? I promise it won't take long, because this is going way longer. Can you go back to the car path picture that we were just looking at? Does this get any bigger than it is on the screen? Just so everyone can see it.
I don't know.
There you go.
Okay, well, just want to point this out right here. For Mike too, and Mike, thank you for going through all those pictures, that was helpful, This tree right here, this is a good example of what's not coming back. This is, the root flare is completely buried. There's a huge wound here from probably a skid steer or something like that. This is not repairable. This is not going to grow back in. All of these trees are not going to grow back in. The way that they've been pruned and treated, that's not gonna happen. So Mike, as much as I like your commentary, I have to disagree.
Okay, we have a response? Okay, I think we've exhausted, no, there are people that.
Well, just call it a path, call it a cart path, call it a road. It is 15 feet wide. And I'm not a proponent for going every 100 feet to find out what the wetlands are. I am a proponent at every crossing to give good judgment as to how much was disturbed. And I bet that might be under 5,000 square feet. 8 crossings at a couple hundred feet per crossing, because you're gonna have to do some restoration anyways.
H1, they've got that up in the.
It's right up, it's all calculated to them. That's why.
Right, but that's of the purple. I'm suggesting that there was a wetland that got disturbed when somebody put in a new culvert.
And that's what I put together. That's the bank disturbance.
Which is more than just the blue. I'm assuming your bank disturbance was the blue, but I'm seeing uncolored, and all the length of the pipe is your orange. So.
Because that was
Because it was disturbed before you got there. Yes, that's right. That's right. So the other thing about a path versus a cart path, if you'd let me finish my point, you can come back and respond to whatever you want. It was called a 10-foot, as to what a pedestrian is 3 foot.
30 inches.
30 inches. A cart path, a tractor, 6 feet, no problem. A lane on a country road, 8, 9 feet. A highway. What is the width of the lane going across the Sagamore Bridge? 10 feet.
What's your point?
So what is the road? The road that we're given, that we're not saying that they're not giving an inch on, is way too wide. So how can we let nature, I'm not saying change the culverts, I'm not saying affect the wetlands, but you need a 15-foot cart path. Sorry.
Okay, bye.
Mr. Chairman, please put that picture back up that we asked for. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. 100%. That was damaged. That tree is not gonna come back. That, and that. But for someone that's owned 36 acres of woods between Blackstone Street and on Old Quistent Road, and has been there 40 years, I've watched areas like this on that cart path get grown in. This will creep and creep. This will creep and creep. So like I said, if we come to a reasonable decision that reasonable minds will agree on and say, okay, in the 20-foot, 25-foot wide areas that have been cleaned up, stop manicuring here and here. Maintain a walkway through there. That will come back.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, because I've been in this town for 45 years, I've got 36 acres in the woods, and I've seen it. And if you don't believe me, go ask Peter Denton, who owned 200 acres of the very same property and dealt with it in his 80 years of living in this town.
Can I just say one sentence?
Okay.
It's just that you don't see the rest of the picture where he's pruned all the trees all the way up, Mike.
He did go out on a visit, so he was able to see that. All right, so I think we've exhausted discussion amongst the committee. I will say, is there anyone who's very patiently waiting in the audience who wants to weigh in or online? Okay. It is now motion time. We do not have any motion sheets in this because it was not, it's still very, we were still gathering information. what I will expect to happen is someone on the commission will make a motion. I will ask for a second. If it fails, then I will wait for someone else to make a motion. If there is a motion and a second, then I will entertain limited discussion. And then I will call a roll call vote, and we will see whether that motion passes or fails. If it passes, we're done. If it fails, I will then entertain another motion, hopefully that takes the opposite approach. For example, one motion might be to accept the Picasso Michelangelo Sistine Chapel of a document and use it as a basis to ask them to come up with their restoration plan. Another motion might be to say we reject the plan and will request that he file a DEP permit instead of working with us in the further. So you can think about how you want to phrase either one of those motions. Please state it slowly and clearly so that when it comes time for Isabella to write the minutes up, she'll be able to transcribe it.
Can we
Okay,
make a motion to continue?
well, you can
Because
do
we need
that.
more information, or let's just hand it over to the DEP.
Well, I will, I'm now opening the floor. Susan, were you interested in making one?
Yes, I would like to make the motion to continue, to get more information and a more thorough plan, including everything from what's particular species, whether the critters are living in the water.
This isn't, what we're discussing tonight is whether to accept this document. This is
Oh,
a
okay.
document of the resource.
Yep.
How do you phrase it? What's the phrasing for what this thing is?
This is a site plan. My recommendation would be, if you want more information, would be calculations on the path, because that's what we're looking
We're
at.
I just
not-
don't feel there's
we're
enough
not-
information
we're just not
here
gonna
to
do
make
that.
a.
So
And
that's, we just might as well just stop and pack up and go.
right, and the applicant's response is if you ask to modify the plan so that the orange part becomes subject to a restoration or remediation, they will go to DEP instead.
How
That'll
about-
make it easier.
And it's up to the members of the commission to
And
decide.
I will say, if I can, Mr. Chairman, if we do go to the DEP and have to go to Army Corps of Engineers, they will probably be a lot more lenient than you guys.
Okay, well, that is his professional opinion. So again, do you want to make that motion or do you want to wait for someone else to make a motion?
Okay, then, and at that point, then, I would like to make a motion for peer review, at least a preliminary desktop type, to, get some, more collaboration and,
What's the scope of the peer review?
just to collaborate what's on the plans and see what sort of, things that should be and whatnot to, restore. The limits of restoration and whether there should be.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
A peer review consultant is just gonna say, I have plans, I double checked the area calculations, they seem to be accurate. I don't have information on the plants or seed mixes or erosion control or anything like that. We need a path to get that. So the motion really should be, I wanna make a motion for MBL and Jeff to prepare a restoration plan for our consideration in order to therefore go to a notice of intent and then to condition an order of conditions for the restorations to be constructed.
So moved.
Thank you
I'm
very
in
much.
that motion.
That's kind of what I was trying to get at, but then I was told that was.
And then you can put a peer review once we've got the restoration plan.
Okay, so Isabella,
Wait,
can
that's
you?
kind of sort of what
are
I was
you-
getting at. That come out right.
Hold on. Okay, well, all right, so, is there a second?
On Mike's motion?
Yes.
I'll make a different motion.
Well, you can. The first motion, parliamentary procedure, first motion got there first, and now I'm waiting for a second.
This point of information, because does the motion as written saying that we accept this restoration plan, but in going for a notice of intent, we're going to detail the restoration plan?
I'm
This
gonna,
motion
no.
is to accept the site plan as it is,
Site-
and they would come back with the restoration plan in,
It's not
whatever amount of time, 2 to 4 weeks or
and
whatever.
the
Okay,
basis,
stop.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. A motion's been made.
yes,
Before we have any discussion on it, it's gotta be second.
yes.
So someone's gotta second it, then we can discuss till the cows come home. before we vote. And then the vote will be either yay or nay. So we'll go with the motion or not, and then someone will have to make another motion
Okay,
for
then,
something
then
else.
I'm going to rule that motion out of order because it's unclear and ask you to restate it in using your own words instead of his. So
Mr. Chairman.
continue making your motion.
I believe, I make a motion to allow the applicant to submit a restoration plan
Based on,
based on the information that was provided to us tonight.
okay, is there a second? Motion fails. Chair will now entertain another a different motion.
Mr. Chair, I was almost going to second that, as long as with my point of information, the question was, all right, we're accepting this site plan. Now, I have some questions that I don't think the site plan is clear about all the wetlands.
It's not,
Right, so that's my.
yeah.
So you
So-
can't, if you separate.
Well,
One
if
at
you
a
let me
time.
finish, so can I accept this plan, this site plan, and expect that in the notice of intent, there's going to come up with another plan showing all the wetlands that's disturbance, and at that point, I can say, well, can't you include the square feet in the orange that got disturbed historically? And so that, I don't think, if you limit it to the crossings, I don't think that's gonna kick off the 5,000 square feet. I could be wrong. But that would then, rather than them just restoring 2,000 square feet of BVW, they might have to restore 4,000 BVW.
4,999.
Well, whatever the number is. But we would have an opportunity to work with a restoration plan. And that, as opposed to, this is not a restoration plan, right? This is a site plan.
Right.
And if I have some questions, I can accept it, or I can say, no, it's not complete, or it's good enough to achieve the purpose, which is, can we work with them going forward? Which I think we can.
Mr. Chairman, again, point of order, it's not been, that motion wasn't seconded. We should not be discussing it.
Right, I'm still waiting.
It's gotta be seconded, a motion's gotta be seconded, then we can discuss it all night long.
Right, we are now
And what
waiting.
people are forgetting is, just because we make a motion and it's accepted, and we go that route, there's still the approval or denial of it
Yes.
later on.
So I'm still waiting for another motion. So if I can think about what Peter just said, his concern is that he believes that the report that's been presented to us maybe on.
I'll use his words, he said inaccurate, and that is so far from the truth, it's not funny.
On further investigation, he may want to add additional wetlands areas or resource areas.
That's fine, if they want to add additional areas, that would be part of the notice of intent process.
Okay, so.
However, we've delineated the wetlands, we've identified what we understand as alteration, temporary or permanent, as we requested. We kept the path off because it's pre-existing, non-conforming.
Okay, so I believe that answers Peter's point of information. I'm now going to open the floor for another motion.
I make a motion to pass this off to DEP with the understanding that the information provided does not give us all the answers we need.
The second that.
Okay, so the motion, if I can put it in.
I think you're recommending the enforcement matter to,
You're requesting that the applicant file the appropriate permit with DEP?
No.
No?
not recommending that they take the case, that
Okay,
this commission does not want to continue, and you'd be handing it off to DEP,
okay. Is
or
that,
requesting that they investigate.
okay,
I make a motion that this board passes this particular site to DEP and let them carry on the enforcement order.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Susan,
Abstain right now, because all right, sorry.
don't make me get my gavel.
Intimidation. All right, I will go along with it as well.
So you're voting affirmative?
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Peter,
I'm gonna whip out abstain.
Mike,
Yes.
Nay,
chair votes no, so 3 yes, 2 no, 1 abstention. No, the motion passes with a vote of 3 to 2.
thank you, neighbors. Hey.
If you don't shrink it, that's the.
Really? Yeah. Have a good night now.
Aye.
For coming. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 8, 32 Blackstone Street.
Anybody need a recess?
Oh,
New Foundation, property owner Justin Harshaw.
We have snacks.
No, we don't.
Yeah, the mints.
Holy, get them away. Here. Would you like a bowl?
You're getting a good education. I mean,
Join the commission.
Not the one any of us ever wants.
I know, but it's, you get an education. You got a tough job.
Right, so Isabella, opening summary.
Yeah, we discussed the property last time, the commission issued the enforcement order. Justin responded immediately. I met with him and Mike Dean with DNL Design, who's been obtained to work on the enforcement order. They're likely subcontracting with Goddard. We talked about having the current existing conditions on the historic line investigated. My recommendation is that they investigate the area around the foundation, the new construction first, so that we can look at lifting cease and desist forward. And then we would resolve the open pond and the other vegetation clearing, over time, not as immediately, yeah.
How wide is your house?
That's
How big is the
my
property?
summary.
10,000 square feet.
Excuse me?
Okay, I'm
Oh, was
just
it
giving you a
Yeah,
joke.
I'll let you make your follow-up or.
Yeah, if Isabella is correct, and I guess I'll start by saying I apologize for not being here for the meeting that was on the 12th. I didn't have an engineer or any answers at the time. I didn't think I needed to show up. I understand why it was on the agenda. My absence wasn't because I was not wanting to participate. Any phone call or email I've gotten, I've responded with. The engineer that I was trying to pursue took over the engineer that I had when I built my home. They are about 5 weeks out, so I moved on from them, contracted with DNL, who I think could be a lot more responsive for us. Yeah, as far as where the new foundation is, I did ask to start that because we are on hold right now. I did have to put contractors on hold. I guess maybe I could jump ahead as far as your next date that you were requesting, as far as we all want to take a vacation after tonight. You all need a vacation. My only question would be, depending on the findings from the wetland scientist, could the enforcement order be lifted other than the meeting? You know, if it was emailed, if anything was presented to all of you?
I think the one thing to look at is that this is a functioning farm. The garage or barn will be garage storing farm equipment. So there are some exemptions for buffer zones, so, you know, if the delineation is in the 100 feet or, you know, would be maybe outside of the 100 feet, and then, you know, then obviously the chair can approve it, but I think whether the 50-foot no build setback may not apply as a functioning farm, but we want to know where it is. But if you're not meeting in 2 weeks and you get the wetland delineation, you could have the chair lift the cease and desist on the foundation, but, or something like that.
Okay, so the way I will give a decision tree. The wetland scientist will come back with one of the following statements. One, the foundation work is entirely outside the 100-foot buffer and it's not jurisdictional. Great, lift it. I now have to ask the commission 3 things. What happens if they come back and say it's within 50 to 100? What do I say if it's between 25 and 50? What do I say that it's under 25 or actually within wetlands? So I would like to hear people's opinions on what I should respond for those different scenarios.
I have a question.
Yep.
So are we treating the enforcement order for the foundation differently than we are for the replication that wasn't done in the wetland crossing?
Correct.
So the enforcement orders that apply, that we're talking about right now, what does that apply to?
I think the urgency of the foundation is currently on hold. The framers are set back. If we're able to lift that and it's, you know, lift that portion and then pursue the engineering and delineation of the rest of it in the farm pond, that's not as urgent because it's not active construction.
So does that also have its own enforcement order, or is this just?
It's under the same, but you could revise it at that time.
And also
Meeting.
that's part, that also involves reopening the expired permit and then working with it on that.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to hazard a guess. If it's less than 50 feet from the wetland, I would say don't lift it. If it's more than 50 feet, maybe.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
if
your
it's real close.
statement.
Is there a map?
Hold on, Bob next.
I have a question. Since the restoration may or may not have been done on the previous notice of intent, and this is found to be within 25 feet, 50 feet, whatever we decide, can we add any restorative needs to the original and increase the square footage?
Good question.
Because that way,
So what's
if
the
that's the
solution you're
case,
saying?
we can lift this, let him build his property with the understanding that if there's restoration to be done, it can be done in conjunction with what is or is not been done already.
So you're saying let him continue work even if it is in the wetlands and he'd have to do restoring.
With the
work someplace
understanding
else.
that, yes, that wetland work would need to be replicated in a different way.
Okay, that's.
I think we gotta find out where it is.
I don't think you could have it in the actual list of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to permit actual.
We don't know that yet.
Yeah.
All right,
That would be going against our bylaw.
so Peter's suggestion was lift it if it's outside the 50-foot buffer. You're saying lifted it is outside of 0.
Lift it if it's outside of the 25 anyways.
Well, you willing to lift it if it's outside of the wetlands proper?
Correct.
Okay, so you're saying 0. And so we've heard 50 and 0. What do other people?
75.
I'd say 25. 25.
Did I hear something?
I think it's
about
gotta be at
an
least
active
50.
farm?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
This is an active farm.
Do you have a
Yes,
farm
but he
plan?
bought another existing.
With the state? I don't. I didn't, Lisbeth and I discussed that. I wasn't even aware of it. It's a farm for me and my family. I don't do it for a living. I do it because I love it. But I haven't looked into a farm plan with the state.
Usually that's when,
Say it again.
I would say that's
You
usually
would need that for the exemptions of building a pond in a wetland. He doesn't need it to put a structure within 100 feet.
I'm talking about, yeah,
But on the, yeah, so that's a little, but that, you know, that's something that we are gonna have to look at permitting and the size and everything on that. But, you know, the pond isn't going anywhere.
Was that with the notice of intent we talked about?
Yeah, that you would have to file a permit after that. And then if the commission wants a farm plan, getting that through the NOI process.
will there still be replications? or in the crossing and everything.
Yeah, you can't not replicate.
It's been a while.
Yeah, as far as my expired order of conditions, I was always under the impression, you know, I'm the one who contracted to build our house. I was always under the impression that everything was done until I got a phone call from Isabella. I was under the impression that everything was done. I even found an email from December 2018 from my engineer at the time that said I'm going to meet, I think at the time it was Tim McCarty. I'm going to give him the as-built on the septic and the wetland replication, blah, blah, blah. I was happy to move in my new house. It was Christmas time. I got my occupancy. I never, ever knew that it wasn't filed. As I've said to Isabella and Carl that yep, if I got to redo it, like where it went, got lost in translation, whether it was here or there, it doesn't matter. I want to get it resolved.
Your site engineer is usually finishes up the paperwork
Yes.
with the conservation.
Absolutely.
And our agent at that time would have been
Bill,
Bill McKenna. No, Bill
oh,
would have
Bill's
been
here,
doing it.
okay.
So that connected, it may have been
Before
while
my
he was
time.
busy retiring, and that's why it fell through the cracks.
Whether it was on my engineer or my side, whether it was on their side, I'm working for trying to get that closed out.
Okay.
I know it gets kind of jumbled because there's two different issues here.
Okay,
And if
so
there's no, were there culverts, Isabella? I can't remember. if
there are
you
no
said
culverts,
culverts.
and the plan called for 2 culverts.
Okay, so that would have to be.
It would have to be addressed when we reopen. All right, so since this one actually does make a difference, I'm going to make the motions. I'm going to move that the chair be authorized to allow amend the enforcement order to allow the applicant to finish work on his foundation and barn if he is out of the wetlands.
I agree with that.
Because
Second.
it has been moved and seconded that 0, if he's not in the wetlands proper, he can continue working. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Great. Now I have marching orders. If your wetland scientist sends mail to Isabella and me saying you're out of the wetlands, then we'll be able to release the hold.
Could that be through an email
Yeah,
as opposed to a meeting? Okay.
so Isabella, I'd asked if you come up with whatever the appropriate form is so I can just mail it out if you're on vacation at the time. And we'll need to make up a way for me to monitor your email if you're not doing it remotely.
I think Mike and Scott Goddard, if my away signature is, they can just,
Okay,
or
if
they
you,
can email Concom and it'll go to both of us.
great, okay. All right, so I think that settles
I
that
have one more
particular
question.
issue. Yep,
For your next meeting that you're scheduling, and I think in July,
24th.
the 24th, will we be back on the agenda for the open order or the expired order conditions?
I'd say you should have your site management team work with Isabella to decide whether they are prepared to work with the permitting and stuff. It may be that they say, if the enforcement order is letting you do the bill, just let that sit until they come back with the full-blown NOI submission, which may take them a couple of weeks to prepare.
Yeah, I think there's a couple, you have some options where the commission can require the rest of the replication be done under the enforcement, and that reduces filing fees, but the farm pond should have a permit, and that's something that, as this Mike and the site engineers are out there, they'll determine kind of the easiest
We talked a little bit about that.
path of least resistance.
Yeah, they will be able to say, for specifically whether your farm pond activities are better if you submit a farm plan. And then you go through that particular process. Okay, so,
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Do you have to file a 61A or E or whatever it is to become a farm, to have a farmland?
No, that's just a tax.
Yeah.
So,
It's
so
in
the
a
state,
business license.
Good
town
try,
property
good try.
tax.
Yeah,
So you
because
got-
I don't think you're looking for a tax break, right?
Yeah.
He is
Oh,
under,
yeah, very big
he
one.
is under,
I have a garden.
he is under 61A.
Oh, okay.
I am under 61 acres.
Oh, okay.
I did it just because I like the idea of being a farm.
Yeah, no,
The-
I'm sweet cranberries because of that. I did the same thing.
Bob.
The Wetlands Protection Act says that a functioning farm is for commercial purposes versus
Yeah,
someone.
you doing anything commercial there, or you just have like?
I believe the
Yeah.
language on
If we're a
that.
cow calf operation, we have horses and chickens.
You have to sell a certain amount of product.
Cattle.
That's for 61A.
For
For
61.
61A, you have to have profit. For a
No,
farm
for
plan,
wetland
no, I
protection.
wouldn't-
For the wetland
Yeah.
protection exemptions, you have to have a profit.
Didn't we just do this before?
The Wetland Protection Act exemptions, you have to have a profit, and you get a certain list of things you can do. And then you get, if you have a registered farm plan, you get another list of things you can do. And that's where a pond under 5,000 square feet, you can do. A pond of 10,000 square feet, you need the plan. But otherwise, if you don't have the plan, you need a permit, and that's what we would do this way with the permit. So it's, it's just after the fact.
You don't need to have followed that as long as the people you've hired know what she's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an education for me, and even when we met with Mike, I let them take the lead, I let them talk. And I just told Mike, I said, let's do what we gotta do to make it right.
Okay. My
He
other,
rents out parcels.
so thanks, and you may or may not be here in a month, depending on how the paperwork plays
Fair
out.
enough.
And I will also give a status update to the commission. I spoke today with the chair of the select board about the building inspector issuing a verbal approval and how that has caused problems for us, and that is on his radar.
Can I speak on that as well?
Yep.
As I said to Isabella when she called and told me that there was a hold on the permit, I never knew that. I never got an email, nothing popped up like a
Yes.
portal or anything like that, other than the phone call I received. I didn't know that either. I don't know what the protocol is for the building department, to give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down or whatever, but
That is what the select board, I've raised to the select board, the town administrator, and they are going to slowly, but very slowly grind the wheels of progress and figure out how to make the building inspector and the building department work in a more effective fashion with us.
okay. Yeah, it's,
That is
Not your
something.
fault.
no, and I just assumed that, maybe I should, but I just figured if I didn't know, he didn't know, or the building inspector didn't know.
I have a hold on the permit, and I made a comment that I needed the site plan, so John would have seen that because he approved it after I put the hold.
Okay.
So that's, it is something he should, the Board of Health also has it on hold because they needed to see setbacks from the septic and the well. And so both, in this case, both departments had it on hold a month prior to the approval from the building commission.
And maybe that's something that just be, like, I never got an email to see that.
It is not your fault. You are instead a useful use case that we are using to get people's attention. Hey, there's a communication problem here.
Okay.
So thanks for coming, and
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a good night.
we'll see how that plays out in the future. All right, good. 2 Nitmuck Drive, DEP 218-0837, review activity to the current excited limit or approve the permit. So,
I mean, I saw Mike yesterday, he said he would get me a date, and he didn't, so.
Oh,
So what, 3
we
months
already
from
have
now?
an enforcement order there?
There's no enforcement order, and he said he said on site that he knew that if he didn't get a date, he knew that was coming, so I
There's
don't
an enforcement
know.
order.
I don't know, but I mean, you haven't set a date that you wanted the permit by, but
The day that we first mentioned it.
I mean, it's not, I don't know.
How about we send them a letter that says by the next meeting, we expect, some sort of action towards this.
what would you, in the letter, what should it say that the Conservation Commission, what pain will we inflict on them if they don't get us anything in 3 weeks? Because we want it 1 week before the next meeting.
2 weeks.
Okay, 2 weeks before the next meeting.
So, and the next meeting's a month away.
Right, so if he doesn't get us something in 2 weeks, what will the enforcement order say? That we
Are they
issue?
still building the house?
The house?
They're not working on this site outside of the 100 feet. They're working on the house interior and the driveway, and they put some lights up and those sorts of.
Well, then they're gonna stop working on the house.
The house is not jurisdictional.
All work has to stop on the site. Like,
We'll stop it at the driveway. They can't enter the driveway.
they need to, we've been going through this for months and months and months.
Mike, do you have any suggestions on that? Somebody who just does not want to respond?
Refresh me what the problem is?
On
When-
the to Nitma, Benny Pinto's property, he has cleared outside of the limit of work along left the immediate bank, but cleared everything else. And the permit was never issued, so there is no order, so they have to file a new notice of intent. Benny has Mike Dean on staff, they're gonna have to design, if he wants a bigger parking area or a bigger lawn, they're gonna have to increase the limit of work in the new notice of intent, because they don't have a permit.
We've been trying to get him in here for months.
It's been about 3 months now and they
That's,
just stonewalling.
Mike has said it's on his end, not Benny's.
Maybe he needs a new engineer. That he can put in here.
Well, we certainly shouldn't be doing any work outside the house. The house built.
Yeah, and then there's that steep slope.
Yeah, that's really.
So is he working on the house or is he working on the land?
Not working on the house, and they put up the posts on the driveway, they're not working. They haven't moved the excavator, they're not working on yard.
They may be, because there's new dirt around where that stone stairway comes down.
The driveway was roped off this morning.
And not only that, where the excavator's sitting, it's always mowed, so they have to be doing something there.
Working on the house doesn't cause any detrimental. The
Correct.
house is there, not causing any detrimental to the wetland. If he's working on the yard, then he can't until he gets his permits in place.
There's an existing order of conditions he has, right?
No, unfortunately, the way I phrase it is the paperwork is delinquent. It is not attached to the deed. It was never officially issued with signatures on it. This happened while we were transitioning with our previous agent having to leave suddenly, and the paperwork never got filed or signed appropriately. Susan doesn't have copies of it.
So it's on us.
It's on us and on Mike Dean.
Yeah, the applicant didn't finish the project, if they didn't walk away with the permit.
Right, and some of that driveway was in the buffer, for sure.
So what enforcement order do we issue in 2 weeks if we do not have paperwork? What should it say?
Well, 2 weeks, you're not having a meeting, so
No, but
this
we
is talking
can-
about 4 weeks from now, what do you
What-
want to set that you want the NOI for the next meeting?
What I would say is that we send an email, a letter tomorrow saying, if you do not get us something in 2 weeks, we will do the following. So if we do
Fine
not,
you $25 a day for not having a notice of intent. I don't know.
You'll issue an enforcement order and consider fines.
Yeah,
okay,
that sounds good.
So you want me to send that
Consider
email?
or enact, because consider means that, maybe you will,
You'll
maybe you
begin
won't,
discussing issuing fines.
How about, yeah, enforcement order,
If
fines
we-
to follow.
from this date forward.
so the email says that if we do not get a response within 2 weeks, that at our meeting in 4 weeks, we will be seriously considering an enforcement order with daily fines
Yes.
until such time as they submit an NOI.
So I think that we should have a protocol for this kind of stuff. Like if we see them for a meeting, if there's no action, automatic enforcement order.
If I can skip ahead, what you're talking about is regulations, and that's on our to-do list for you.
Isabella has so much work to do. She
Mr.
has
Chair, do you
all
want that as a
these
motion or?
things dragging on for months and months and
Isabella,
months.
do you want a motion, or are you comfortable with what you
I'd
just
like to
heard?
hear the motion from Guy Macon.
Okay, so I move that we ask our agent to notify the owner and his engineer that if we do not, or if we are not given a specific promise in 2 weeks as to when they're going to get an NOI, that at our meeting in 4 weeks, we will be discussing issuing an enforcement order that includes daily fines until such time as an NOI is submitted.
I'll second it, but I would like to say we will be issuing an enforcement order.
I'm not,
considering.
you do not we do not hold hostage a future conservation commission meeting.
So then what do? We say.
At the meeting in 4 weeks, we will look at the situation and make a
Change our mind.
decision. But it will be on the agenda that we will
Okay, I get it.
have an enforcement order. And this will prevent the situation where we just had, where someone said, I didn't know you were going to be talking about it. No, we're going to send him an email tomorrow. Yeah. We're tired of waiting.
Okay, second that.
Okay, so any further discussion? Roll, okay, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm
Passes.
abstaining.
Okay, one abstention, passes with one abstention. Okay, agenda item 10, 23 Cape Road Restoration Plan. The applicant submitted a restoration plan earlier today or earlier this week. Deshang provided his comments. My summary of Deshang's comments is he likes the scope that the Cape Road, that the management team has proposed, and he has some specific details about what he wants them doing before, during, and after the execution of the wetlands plan.
Was that the red writing?
You got the what?
You have two different, you have the letter from LEC and the letter from Claw. And yeah, I think Deshang has 6 points or something that he's making. I spoke with Dan Wells with LEC today, and since Deshang wasn't able to come to the meeting, Dan suggested that the commission authorize me and Deshang to approve the plan after the three of us meet sometime next week, and then they can move forward rather than waiting until the next meeting in July at the end of the month.
I thought it looked good.
In terms of timeliness, one of Deshang's recommendations, wait till it's dry.
Yeah.
So we do have a certain amount of pressure, but it's not going to.
So it's dry now and it's not going to be dry after September, so.
So
I would motion to allow the staff to proceed for our next meeting to approve the restoration plan.
I second that. It looked good.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. Okay, agenda item 11, 15 Daniels Road, request for a partial certificate of compliance for DEP number 218-0035. 1983 subdivision that, what street was this in? Park.
Daniels Road.
Yeah, so one must have been one of the first subdivisions in town.
No, not really.
No?
No.
First
That
half,
was back when anybody that owned a hammer could call himself a developer.
The first one's subject to the act.
subject to the
Claims
Wetlands Protection Act, yeah.
Revised the lot sizes.
Is this even
Before it
jurisdiction?
happened, there was a line out the door down the corner of people coming in with plans. Once you got it on the board, didn't have to get approved. You got it in, with grandfathered into the old bylaw, to the old
Subdivision.
regulations.
Okay,
You should be able to do it.
I came here in 86, 87.
You moved to recover it.
Yeah, probably.
okay, so this is another case where the subdivision got a DEP permit and the subdivision never got it closed out. He's a homeowner in the subdivision and he says, I just want to sell my house. So do you have something for us to sign tonight?
There aren't wetlands on this property.
Okay, so we're signing that, there's no other things.
And I don't know if we're able to start closing some of these permits, but then someone would have to go and record it on the deed. I don't know how to solve that.
They take it, record it, and they give it to us.
But it's
I
on
know,
them,
but the
it's on them.
developer,
It's on them to record it.
if we know who
We'll
they
have,
are.
we'll have documentation that we closed it, gave them an order, signed off on the completion.
Yeah, but
They have to go record it, because if they don't, it'll pop up again.
So
We'll have
suggesting
documentation.
We want to help out the townspeople by telling them that there are all these things out there.
But this is on the developer, not the individual property owner, so we can give partial certificates to every property owner. But the road has to be closed out by whoever, and I don't understand why that didn't happen when the road got accepted, but we have to find some construction company.
Was Daniel Road and accepted road in town,
Where is
and it
it?
falls on the select. It's accepted.
Down southeast
Or
corner.
the planning board. When
And then I guess the select board would have to fund recording it at the deed, recording the registry. I don't know.
Okay, well, I will officially say it is past 9:30 and not our problem. Updates from the chair. I have an update on 133 North Road. I received a communication from town council, Karis North. She has not been able to schedule a meeting with applicant's lawyer, but that's on her. She's has a busy schedule, and she expects to do that next week. She also gave me permission to inform the committee that earlier this week, the parties, his client and DEP, are close to a resolution on 134 North Avenue. Harris expects to have documents for the commission to review for the July meeting on that site. And she'll also have an update on the negotiations. And so we will now inform her that she has 4 weeks and not 2 weeks to get back to us with that information.
Great.
Other chair update, the select board is,
Okay, I see where that is.
select board is going through the process of the reappointment process. We would be having 2 members reappointed to the board, and they're going to be discussing it at their July 2nd meeting. One of the issues that they've encountered is that a number of people who are up for reappointment never finish their training. So they're
Who's up for reappointment?
on our board is Peter and Tim.
So I need to update my,
No, I'm not saying I'm saying that when the town clerk provided a list to the select board saying, here's the people up for reappointment, half of them, and I'm not saying, knowing whether you were on it or not, but half of the people hadn't done their required training or not. So that's the select board will eventually complete the process. It may not happen it's not going to happen by July 1st. So the existing members will carry over until such time as they are reappointed or replaced by new members. Once that process is complete, we'll organize for chair, vice chair, and liaisons to the different committees, like land use or CPC. All right.
What training were you referring to? Is that
The state ethics training.
Oh, okay, I just did that actually.
Yep. So conservation agent update.
The only one was that the Secretary Tepper at the EEA had some family member pass, so she didn't sign the Denton CR on Tuesday. Scheduling time, so the purchase and sale didn't happen. She signed it Thursday, and they're hoping to close tomorrow, the day before the deadline for the grant, which is crazy. But so I had
You have everything from us that you need.
Yes.
yeah. Supposedly. Otherwise,
I'm around tomorrow if you need any signature.
Yeah, I'm working from home tomorrow too.
I did get that form back, or is it over there? No, I haven't, never mind, sorry, yeah.
So is Peter's on that?
Yeah, it's okay. I don't have much else.
Okay, land use?
No, we didn't. We met, that mentioned that the planning for this Boy Scout Jamboree, that was the only thing.
We heard Bob and Jason talking about it earlier. He's trying to get the paperwork done by November for a 300 Boy Scout Jamboree a year from November, October, in honor of the 100th anniversary of Boy Scout 1.
Yeah, Mendon.
Mendon Boy Scout Troop 1. Complete with a little patch that the campers can get. Lake Nipmuc Task Force?
I haven't heard of any meetings.
Okay. Isabella, your dock permit story, you can share? The big database you got?
Super burdensome, in my opinion, to get a dock permit, but, I wanted a list in chapter 91 of everyone who's licensed, and they gave me all of their files for the entire state.
They said, have fun with your an Excel spreadsheet, I hope.
Can you write some script that pulls out anything random?
Maybe, I don't know.
It's one of the, AI things, maybe.
My husband might be able to help you with this.
They're
He writes
PDF
files
files.
with that.
I'm just gonna read it.
It's what kind of PDF files? If you have to OCR them.
No, I can.
All right,
Care all.
review and approve minutes. Do we have minutes? No. Okay, so we'll hold off on that. Good and welfare for the commission. Nobody wants to say anything?
Doing a great job, Carl.
Sorry,
I second.
I'm out of
Yes.
here. And in fact, one of the things that I was referencing in response to what Leah said, after we reorganized, one of the agenda items that I'm going to ask to put on the agenda when I'm not chair anymore is to allocate money from our wetlands fund to hire consultants who will work with us on regulations. Isabella's conducting the preliminary research to find vendors, and then we would authorize to spend money. We meet with them, and then I would work with them and Isabella in coming up with regulations that would do exactly the kind of thing you're asking for. We would have an established procedure where here's what happens if you ignore us for 1 month. Here's what happens if you ignore us for 2 months.
That'll save Isabella a lot of time, running around trying to get people.
Agenda item 15, items not reasonably anticipated. Agenda item 16, motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motions to adjourn are not debatable. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Oh.
Yeah, normally after you
I know.
motion and second, there's a discussion. You don't have discussions then.
Oh, I know that.
Which is a great way to be a troublemaker.